A storm brews on the horizon. An endless maelstrom. It reaches forth from the abyss. In the slums of the grind, suffering and hardship will forge a soul like no other. No one saw him coming, yet all will remember his name. The powerful will stand in his way. Alliances will be forged and shattered. The journey will be fraught with danger. Empires will fall, yet I fear not for the thrones. This time, I fear for all that breathe.
Welcome to the Cyber Health Podcast. I'm Stephen Perano, your host, and we're excited for this episode. It's a little different than our traditional episodes. The gentleman across the table from me, he has the vision to create this amazing story that we're going to share with you today. So we're real excited to introduce Nick Casbarro, and he is introducing the book to us, Vitalerium. We met several months ago at a convention. My wife is an artist, an anime artist. Some of you might know that. And we were lucky enough to be placed next to him. For you people that know about conventions and Comic-Cons, we had a booth right next to him. And here we are. So let's get into it, Nick. I want to touch briefly on your background, but obviously I want to focus mostly all about the story, okay, and the creation of the characters. That being said, I hinted before when we first opened up here about your background in the medical field. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, so I went to school to be a physical therapist. I attended Northeastern University's DPT program. So you actually go to school, you get a doctorate in physical therapy.
Oh, okay. Dr. Nick, here we go.
So no, I never practiced. I actually ended up graduating early from the program. So what ended up happening was I got 5 years into this 6-year doctorate program and finally hit the realization that I don't want to be a physical therapist for the rest of my life.
No kidding.
And it's nothing against the science. It's nothing against, PTs in general. It just wasn't for me. I needed something a little bit more dynamic. Maybe it's the ADD brain. Who knows?
Right.
But I went to my advisor. I said, hey, I want to graduate early. What do I need to do? And she said, you have enough credits to have graduated early last year. So basically, you're good to go. So, and that was that. And so I wanted to I really enjoyed the sciences, and I wanted to use them in some way. And so I kind of fell into medical devices. I had some family members who had been in the industry. They kind of guided me through the interview process of, what to expect, how to reach out, how to interview for medical sales. And then I ended up doing that for about 11 years. And I did all sorts of stuff. I was a rep. I managed. I was the last position I had, I was the national director of basically the traumatic burn segment of for this product that I sold, which actually, funny enough, I sold medical grade fish skin for burn injuries.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting. Funny to see how similar the tissue is. Fish skin, there's not really a whole lot different between fish skin and human skin. They have scales and we have hair. Otherwise, once you remove the cells, it's basically, it's incredibly similar. But, I was traveling all over the country doing this, and my specialty was burn. And it got to a point where, I was on a plane 3 to 5 days a week. And so when you're flying that much, you find ways to pass the time.
Sure.
For me, I had to get to a point where I basically beat Netflix before I did anything about it. I remember the day I started writing this. I was sitting at the airport, downloading episodes to a show I didn't even want to watch, just to pass the time because I had this long flight ahead of me. And I had jotted down some ideas on a whim not too long before that. And I was like, you know what? I'm wasting my time. Why don't I do something and see? Why don't I see where this goes? So I get on the plane and I just start writing. And by the time I got off the plane, it was a flight from Miami to Hawaii. It's a long flight.
Wow. Yeah.
I was on chapter 4.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, like this is, it literally just poured out of me. So I kept going. And at that point, I started saying, like, this is kind of cathartic. I'm having fun with this. I started building the universe. I built this gigantic 40-tab long Excel document that breaks down everything from the themes I talk about to the characters and their backstories. There's supposed to be 7 colonized planets in this version of the future. So what do those planets look like? How many moons do they have? What is the government structure, the social structure? What are the people like there, the languages they speak? So just literally every little detail, I just kept asking questions until I had answered at least enough to where I was like, okay, I have a really solid base to work off of. And then from there on out, the plane just became my writing office.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's good to give advice to people out there that you might be in a routine basis, like you're flying, like you said, a lot, 4 or 5 days a week. And instead of sitting there just senselessly scrolling or watching some irrelevant show, you're like, I'm going to create my own thing. And you were inspired. You said you created 4 chapters by the time you landed?
Yeah. Yeah, they were rough. I mean, mind you, at this point, that was literally the first thing I had written in over a decade, other than a professional email. So this was, it was in very raw form at the time, but as, I continued to write, I kind of caught my groove. And, obviously I always love when people say, oh, I want to write a book, I want to do this. We'll write it.
Right.
Sit down and write it.
Right.
Because I feel like the fear of failure, or the fear that what you produce is not going to be good in its initial form, that's just for those out there, like it's kind of irrelevant, because I've gone back multiple different times and changed things, edited things. You always have the opportunity to fix what could be wrong. So don't be afraid to, I guess, you jump out there and try something new, because, I never expected this is where it was going to turn, or what it was going to turn into. But now this, other than, family and things like that, this is the only thing I think about.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, before we dive deep into the book, let's talk about some motivation aspects. What was the big motivation to go in, like, after you started writing the chapters and you started seeing this, like, whole world kind of, like, start transpiring in your mind? Like, what was your motivation?
That's a good question. So it started off as just a fun way to pass the time. It was kind of a creative outlet for me. I hadn't had one in a while. I had just been so busy. And so for a while, probably until I hit probably the halfway point in the book, I was like, this is cathartic. It's fun. Who cares if it turns into nothing? And then it got to a point where, I'm getting ready to find a publisher, and I'm like, I need to make this work. I need to, I was so invested in it, and I was having so much fun, and I had put so much effort into the world building aspect, which is my favorite part, just being able to literally create on the page, that I was like, I need to see this through. It just became almost an obsession for me. And as far as external motivations, I mean, shortly after that, I had my first daughter, and then I was like, all right, well, now I need to really kind of think toward the future. What am I gonna turn this into? Is it just gonna be a book that sells, 50 copies and I do nothing to really promote it, or am I gonna put my weight behind this and really push and try and turn it into something? And and that was a huge change, I would say, in my life, that definitely fostered the furthering of this book.
Sure. Yeah, because you're thinking long term, like you said, you have your first daughter, and how many kids you have? Total?
Just one right now.
Okay,
she'll be 2 in July. So.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
thank
awesome.
you.
That's awesome. So you're thinking long term, like maybe in generational, right? Like, hey, I'm creating something here that I want to last and be more than just some words on a page, right? And by meeting you at the booth, I got to see firsthand really all the work you did all the people you had to communicate with, like you mentioned, publishers, designers, and editors, and graphic designers, and well, you're going to name the list. What are all the people that it took to get this book done?
Oh, jeez.
And the different titles.
Well, the first person who was really involved is, believe it or not, my wife. So she was my first beta reader.
Okay.
So I had reached about chapter maybe 18 in the book. You know, just to give you an idea, the book is 31 chapters. It's not a shorty, but it reads relatively fast. So she had seen me working on it. We were actually on vacation. So we're sitting on a beach, and I'm on my computer. I'm typing away, and she's like looking at me like, "What are you doing?" Like drink in hand.
Right.
And
Right.
she's like, "What is this thing you've been working on?" I was like, "Well, I'm writing a book." And she's like, "Well, no, I know that, but like, what is it?" I said, "Well, I can send it to you, and you can read a little bit if you want." And she said, "Okay, yeah, I'll read it." So I gave it to her, and, you know, cut to 3-4 hours later, she's still reading the book, still, you know, going through all of it, and she's like, "You can actually write. Like, this is like," which I was a little offended by. I was like, "Hey, come on, like, I'm not."
Right.
But all kidding aside, no, she was like, "This is like pretty good." She was like, "But this part sucks, that part sucks," and just like that too. She was like, "You need to change this. This is too much. That is, you know, this doesn't make sense." It's good to have someone in your life who is not unafraid to be able to give you honest, like true feedback.
Yes.
And often in this case, not always the most polite feedback.
Right.
But yeah, she was absolutely the best. She really helped me refine some parts from the reader's perspective in an honest way, and you need that as a creator because you can get kind of wrapped up in, you can kind of, your mind can get stuck on one track, right? And you can miss things. You can be almost too close to the work to be able to see it from the outside perspective, and those are immensely important to creating a just continuity in the final product. And yeah, so she was the first person involved. Next, I had to find a publisher, and I had a family friend who had a friend who worked at this publisher, and so she said, "Look, I can get you a meeting if they like it, you know, then they'll take you. If not, then you've got more work to do." And I said, "Okay, fine."
Right.
So I ended up breaking out that Excel document I told you about, the 40-tab monstrosity, and I wish I had recorded this video meeting I had with this woman, because I went at her with everything. I just unloaded, because this was like one of the first times I'm really explaining all of this to someone else. And my level of excitement, I don't know if I just would have loved to see her face, like in a recording, to see me like presenting this for the first time. But she ended up saying like, "Whoa, so it sounds like you've got a pretty expansive thing." I said, I already have 7 books planned out in this series. And she's like, "Oh, wow, all right." And they were interested. They took me on. And so they were, the model that they do, they're a hybrid publisher. So they'll set me up with a lot of different people. And they set me up with an editor, because that's kind of the first step and that's more, the editor is more conceptual, and then you do the proofreading afterwards. So you have multiple proofreaders go through, and they dot the I's, cross the T's, put the comma in the right place, all that kind of quite honest, monotonous type stuff.
Right.
But I went through 2 rounds of editing. That was great. And then 6 rounds of proofreading.
Wow.
Which just went to show how much growth I had left to in my career before I get to a point where it's a finished product. So it's a process. It's a long process, and it almost got to a point where I got almost tired of reading my own book. The 8th time reading through, and that's not even counting the other times where I did my own editing prior. So it can be very time consuming, but it's incredibly rewarding in terms of fulfilling that creative outlet. That it really feels good to have built something and to put it on paper and really put it out there. After that, you have to get the book cover done. And so I had to, I didn't like and this is nothing against the guy, it wasn't the style that I was looking for that the publisher had set me up with. So I ended up having to find my own graphic designer to create something that was more in line with, the feel that I was looking to capture of the book. The book is a dark book, which is why the cover itself is kind of ominous. It's supposed to give you that dark feel. It's not really your cozy fireside read.
Right.
This is the type of book to have you at the edge of your seat. And after that was done, I started messing around with some concepts with the graphic designer because I don't. It's funny you mentioned it earlier. I don't plan to just stick to books and comics. I want to take this and penetrate all outlets of media.
Nice.
I'm already looking into the logistics of trying to get a short animated film made, more so for marketing and proof of concept, but something like 8 to 12 minutes long. Take one chapter out of the book and just really bring it to life.
Right.
And eventually down the line, I'm thinking, well, I would love to turn this into a video game. I'd love to have this turned into a live action series or a film at some point. And so my journey kind of evolved as I kept going along this. I started saying, all right, well, if I ever want to do these things in the future, I got to start making inroads. And so I started, trying to network with people in those industries, and that's still continuing to this day. As slowly, I'm more focused on getting book 2 out right now.
Oh, nice.
But slowly but surely, I'm starting to, bring some of the other elements of I'm calling it a franchise now because that's what I fully intend to bring to fruition. Is I want to turn this into a real franchise.
And I can see that 100%.
Yeah.
So let's talk about time frames because people like to associate with time frames. So when you initially wrote the book, to finding the publisher, which you said a friend of a friend. So you found the publisher, they saw the book, you had a couple iterations, editing, and then to get the book published after you found the designer to do the cover, how much time we're talking about so far, just to that point?
So 2 years to finish the book and build the world. That took a lot of time as well, just constantly editing and changing things. And I'm still changing the world now to this day. I usually take one day a week, or at least a couple hours during that day to fiddle with things and answer questions that I haven't thought of yet.
So for people listening, it's a slow game. You're not in a hurry. We're not doing this overnight. For people who have desires to perhaps follow your lead,
right?
It is a time-consuming, dedicated, passionate project.
Absolutely. And it mind you, I was still, working a full-time job while I was doing this.
Right.
So it's not like it's impossible. You just need to find the time. You've got to sacrifice and maybe turn off Netflix for a little while, just not play that video game tonight, and write instead. And
would you say, though, that because a lot of people that talk about the support system, you would say with your wife, because your daughter wasn't born yet, right, when you first started the book?
When I first started the book.
So she was really the support system, supporting you, saying, okay, we're here on vacation. I want to sip some cocktails and jump in the water. You're like, well, I want to type on my laptop right now.
Oh, no. The support I got from my wife was amazing. She's fantastic. My wife Marissa. She's also a surgeon, so she's a badass.
We got to get her on the podcast one of these days.
Hey, I bet she'd love to do it. Yeah.
And to my wife too, for all the great wives out there, we thank you. We appreciate you. We may not say it all the time, but
immensely.
We do appreciate you.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, great. So you found the designer, and he designed the cover and how you liked it. So now.
The entire publishing process, including the creation of the cover, the editing, the proofreading, the marketing, they kind of showed me the ropes as far as what needs to happen when, you're submitting for editorial reviews. They helped do that for me. They set up a NetGalley account. I haven't heard the word, NetGalley since I was in elementary school learning how to use the internet.
Right.
That whole process took about 10 months. So that was even a long, kind of drawn-out process, and you got to take the time to get it right. So it can be frustrating because I know there were times when I was kind of hounding the publisher to get, and that's also the type of person I am because I'm like, I know I'm going to be on it, I always want to check in with people and see what's going on with. So thank you to all the people I've worked with, the 1099s, the contractors, all of those people. They've dealt with my bullshit, as I like to say. But yeah, but you want to take the time to get those little details right, and you want to give them the appropriate time to make sure. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I always wanted to make sure that if I'm putting something out there, that it's not just ready, it is at the best form that it could possibly be. And even now, to this day, like I have to go back and check, while I'm writing book 2, sometimes I have to go back and check, was the scar on this side of his shoulder? Was it on the left side of his? Just little things to make sure it's, the continuity is there.
Right, absolutely.
But I'll notice things and I'm like, oh man, I could have done that here. Like I'm still noticing things that I could change and even make potentially better, or, who knows.
Right. I guess we're our best and worst critic, right? That's what people say.
Yes.
Because you see things, like I mentioned earlier, you can see things in your eye that I may not see, But let's pause and check out a trailer.
Was back and forth. I couldn't find anything that would help me make a futuristic type of video like that. So I ended up having to basically buy access to like a clip library, which I then kind of, I took from there, some different animations that had already been made. I cut them. I bought the rights to use certain music. I bought, all that stuff. And then I just put it together. And over the course of about a long weekend, I had come up with that. So
Really?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing trailer.
Oh, thank you.
It looks like something you'd want to see. It has a mystery, some action going on in there, and then of course with the technology little aspect, amongst other things. So real quick, I want to ask you your opinion.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Dune, Spaceballs.
I like them all. I'm going to have to go Dune, because I would do Frank Herbert's work for the Dune, the book series was one of the real hard sci-fis that I read when I was, a lot younger. My father had given me a copy of the first book, which is, later I ended up buying the subsequent books, but it's like one of the older versions of the book. I mean,
wow.
It's like well flipped through. And that was probably one of the bigger inspirations as far as, what drove me to, write the type of story that I wrote. But then at the same time, Star Wars was the first, some people argue whether or not Star Wars is sci-fi or not. They say, well, no, that's space opera. Well, it's kind of both.
Right.
But, that's neither here nor there. But the first real sci-fi I ever watched was Star Wars. My father had the VHSs of the first trilogy, and I would watch those with him. That was kind of a bonding moment there. And I would rewatch them all the time. And then Spaceballs
It's just a classic,
It's
right?
just a classic.
You either know about it, you don't. And,
Yeah.
and some people that are really hardcore Star Wars fans are offended by it. They're like, "Oh, that's offensive."
Oh, come on.
You got to have fun, man.
Yeah.
And I only bring that up. Of course, it's not in the same league as what you're creating, or even Star Wars or Dune, but it's comical, right? And there was a guy, I don't know if you recall, I don't know if you even saw him at the convention. He was Lord Helmet. So
I did. I saw that guy.
It's
I did. I
hysterical.
saw. Yeah. It was good too. Like it was a.
It was good. It was
a
it was
well-crafted
funny.
helmet.
So a classic. Was it Rick Moranis? I think.
Rick Moranis
right?
was.
One
Yep.
of the guy-
He was Darth Helmet. And then who did was that?
remember.
Mel Brooks. Was it
Mel
who-
Brooks, yeah,
Mel
of course,
Brooks,
yeah,
yep.
Mel Brooks and
Yeah.
John Candy and all the other staff. But yeah, Dune is a great story, great movie, great book.
I love what they've done with the new movies that have come out. It's funny. I went back and I watched the old Dune. I don't know if you know about this. They made a Dune movie in like the 80s. I want to say it was the 80s, or maybe it was even before that. But
I had never saw the whole thing, but I saw bits and pieces of it. Yes, I'm aware of it.
It's rough.
Yeah, I was going to say that's interesting.
They tried to take what Frank, what's his name, Dennis Villeneuve, who turned into 2 movies, and they mashed it all into one. And so it has these like 80s montages in it to show like the passage of time across the and it's funny. And but now what you can do with CGI and the special effects and everything else is just absolutely, it's next level. So I love what he's done with the Dune series.
Yeah,
so
so
far.
I'm asking about that to see where did you get any kind of inspiration from?
Oh, I mean, all over the place. Like I said, I've been a sci-fi fan my whole life, and so started with Star Wars, dabbled in Star Trek, and then when I got to high school, after I, read the Dune book, or actually I read the Dune, it was in high school I read the Dune book, one of the only books at the time that I read just for pure, just pleasure reading, right?
Yeah.
And I read 1984, and then they had us read A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and that really kind of instilled that like the dystopian element. I really find that interesting, and like I said, I've talked about it before, but I feel like there's a lot of value to sci-fi and trying to forecast the future in different ways we can basically go wrong. And what that could mean for us as a society, what that can mean for just us as a species. So there's great value to sci-fi because you're not only seeing the ways it could go wrong, but you're also potentially framing solutions to how it could be fixed or how it could be solved. You don't really get that with 1984 or Brave New World because they're kind of tragic endings. But I definitely pulled my love for kind of that dystopian element of sci-fi from those. I pull from current events, as much as I can. I don't do a 1-for-1 because I think it's kind of cheap. And yes, it could be like more relevant, but no, I try and transpose it into the future society and see different ways that I can use elements from certain current events that are going on. I'm fascinated by ancient civilizations. That's always been a thing. And I don't know if you saw what was just recently discovered under the Great Pyramids.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Oh,
Yes.
so
you must have been going crazy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And for a while, that was all conspiracy theory stuff.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, what the hell are these gigantic pylons beneath the surface? Like hundreds and hundreds of meters, too. It's not like it was just...
Right.
Yeah.
Just a few feet. Right. So then let me ask you that, because I do, before we have this interview, I went around and talking to a small group of people that I always ask. I let them know who my guest is going to be, and these are people that are students, professionals, parents.
Yeah.
What kind of questions would they like to hear, because they're the one watching and consuming the content.
Cool.
So one question is about kind of what you mentioned, the AI and the future of where society is going, because clearly this is futuristic, right? We're going way in the future. So how does that play a role when you're writing it, to where we are now, to where you think we're going to go?
So As far as AI is concerned, I think it's. Are we talking about in? Well, let me first do this. In the book, I describe it as when Vitalerium is discovered, and they finally begin to hone in on its use, and interstellar travel basically becomes possible. Not just possible, but very, very. I don't want to say easy, but prevalent. The prevalence
So
is
that's
high.
the way of
So
life.
it's-
That's the word.
right. So it's
Uh-huh.
it's it almost creates like I said, the new gold rush. It's the golden age of space exploration, and I describe it in the beginning of the book as basically humanity sees the opportunity to become the gods that they always strive to be, no longer locked to one planet. And so a simple shift in, I guess, priorities occurs that basically turns AI into, yes, there is some melding, and I do, and I will be exploring that in future books, but AI ends up being used as more of basically a tool for us to map out the cosmos, for us to be able to have the help we need to get from one planet to another, to learn how to terraform new planets, to basically just drastically heighten that learning curve that we have with space. And it's almost a future that, in the beginning, when I'm kind of describing the future history of how we get to the point where the book starts, it's almost like it kind of solves our problems, where we're using AI in a responsible manner, because creating, a being or an intelligence that is so much more beyond us, it no longer becomes the main focus. It's more about how do we get out there? How do we continue this? How do we keep this moving? And we utilize AI to basically help us do that. And it's almost like a mutually beneficial relationship that I describe that unfolds from, space travel. Whereas I know that I didn't want to fall into the trap of talking about how like AI is going to take over and how AI is going to do this, because I feel like a lot of people are writing about that nowadays. And I wanted to come up with a way, or at least imagine a future where we did have kind of a harmonious relationship, so to speak. I will explore different aspects of that and different aspects of how that could go wrong in future books. I do have certain storylines that do fall into that category, but it's not the main focus. My main focus of this book is much, much larger, diving into things like, and I guess this does kind of correlate with this, but the source of consciousness, the boundaries of the universe, where we don't even know whether or not some people say, yes, the universe is never ending, but then they say, well, we can't see past, the Oort cloud, or I think it's the Oort cloud, basically the boundary of like the observable universe. I want to explore the simulation theory a little bit, or the crux at which the simulation theory meets with myth and legend and religion and just what existence is. And that's, like I said, this is very, very forward thinking. These are all things that I've kind of mapped out for probably, much later in the books. But for right now, what you're really following is the emergence of a future mythological hero in the protagonist. So basically the person who becomes the most important person in future history, and his path along the way to basically become that. So that's That's what my
Which is
book
Roman,
really
right?
focuses on. Roman Matthews.
Matthews, that's
yes.
right. Roman Matthews.
And I know I kind of veered off of the AI talk a little bit, but as far as AI in our everyday life, I think it comes down to how we train it.
Planet Deorum.
Yes. So, what about it?
Just in general, if you can give a brief overview.
Yeah. So Planet Deorum is the 7th colonized human planet, and this is the planet that the 6 previously colonized human planets. So starting after Earth and Mars, you have Cygni, Ventura, Planetary Viridis, Earth, Mars, and Portia Quixote. And they basically form factions, and they all war over this one planet because it is the closest habitable planet to the source of Vitalerium. So as, basically as the kind of future unfolds, this gigantic 100 Years' War breaks out over Deorum. And the IGB, which was originally established by all of the planets, it stands for the Intergalactic Bureau, the Intergalactic Governing Bureau, or at least that's what they become. They're allowed to become too powerful throughout, the hundreds of years before the war starts, and they're the ones who end up winning the war, and then end up ruling the known universe with kind of an iron fist. And they install a puppet government on planet Deorum called the Coalition for Prosperity, which, just as authoritarian as the IGB themselves, as you can imagine, they're really not all about prosperity, as they like to tout themselves to be. But I came up with the name for name Deorum because Deorum in Latin actually means of the gods. And the reason why they call it that is because when they first basically initially colonized the planet, they find all of these ruins from a previous intelligent civilization. And it's I don't want to give away anything, but you kind of find out a little bit more about, the past of what they call the Gleph. That's what they call that civilization that was once there. But so they call it of the gods. That's why they call it Planet Deorum. Part of the reason why I even write sci-fi, decided to write this book, is probably from my deep-seated desire to go out there and explore the cosmos myself. And I don't know if I see that happening in my lifetime, but
well, Blue Origin, they have tickets. I think now it's 100,000.
Yeah,
for 7 minutes.
I got to sell a few more books before I can.
Actually, I don't know. I'm making that up. I have no
trip.
idea. Right. Katy Perry has an extra spot.
Yeah.
But no, on a serious level, you mentioned franchise, right?
Yeah.
Because you see this as a franchise. When you were first writing it or even thinking about it, did you have that in mind? Or was it until after you finished the book that you said, this can be a franchise for sure?
Well, it's funny. The first few people that read it came back to me and they were like, "Oh, this would be awesome as a movie." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's kind of how I'm." And I thought about it because that's kind of how that is how, like, my mind works, at least. Like, every scene that's going on in the book, I'm imagining it in my head as if it were a movie. And that's why I take the time to, dive into the descriptive writing. Like, what if an event is happening in a room? Well, what's going on in that room? Like, what's on the walls? What's on the floor? What's the environment like? And that goes into the world building and everything else. But I wanted to try and create a book that would really immerse people. Just a really, truly immersive experience to put the reader in the front seat of exactly what is going on in whatever scene you're in, because it is multi-narrative. You follow multiple different people.
Right.
And to be able to keep that interesting and to be able to keep all this stuff kind of straight in people's heads, I find that the more detail there is, the better, because it helps you fabricate your own picture in your mind, right? And But yeah, so I basically thought about it, and I was like, oh, I would love to turn this into a movie. That's it. So I would say it immediately no when I started writing the book, but as I continued writing the first book, it was definitely something that started to come up in my mind. Right. Yeah.
Did you ever now, because one thing I want to explore, because there is some people here that, which I had some questions about, that they want to write. They have a great imagination, or they have great stories, great experiences, and ultimately just great visions. But even though with all of that, they have writer's block, or they just get stuck. Life gets in the way. Have you ever experienced that, or can you perhaps give any advice to people that are going through that?
Yeah. So, I've got a couple of different ways that I use to kind of separate myself from the work and, just get back in touch with my creative process, I guess. Luckily, I've always been kind of my father used to call me a space shot. I was I was a big daydreamer, and so that's where a lot of this type of content comes from.
Like, hey, what the hell are you doing in the bathroom? Get out of there.
Yeah. Maybe some different reasons for that, but yeah. So as far as if I ever get stumped, I love, like I said, I have things that I do like that I will dive into, whether it's other sci-fi, current events. I pull inspiration from, if you're looking at the right things and you know how to break things down, you can pull inspiration from anywhere. Could be just an argument between, you witness something at a coffee shop, you witness an argument, and you're like, oh, what are they arguing over? Like, I could use that as the basis for something to lead to something else. Like, or that I could use that for a chapter opening to freshen things up so that it's not just the same thing every time a chapter starts. And once you get a few words on the paper like that and you have a starting point, I always find that the rest tends to flow. The other thing is I'll work out. I always find that kind of helps. The exercise, I'll take my dogs for a long walk. Because if I allow myself to separate from the work for a little while, and I allow that kind of daydreaming aspect to kick back in, at some point my mind circles back to elements from the book, and then suddenly, before I even realize it, I'm like, oh my God, I just figured out a way to make this work moving forward. And if I just go back and change this or add a few details here to preface it, then it'll make more sense, and then it just flows from there. I spend time with family and friends. I've based a number of the characters on people that I know personally, whether that's close friends of mine or people that I've met in passing, just people who have influenced me over the years. Actually, there's one character who doesn't come in until very late in the book, but the character's name is Emmanuel, and I based him off of a surgeon that I became friends with at a burn conference that I went to. Nice. It was the ISBI down in Guadalajara, Mexico, which there's a lot of gang activity going down there. It's beautiful, but there's a lot of stuff going on. But it's funny enough, we left, and 2 weeks later, the very place that we went to go to all these restaurants, there was a big shooting there. Wow. So it's a wild place. So, but anyway, I met this doctor, and he was from Nigeria. And he had just the most interesting backstory. He's a pediatric plastics burn surgeon. Like the dude is a stud. And he's incredibly brilliant, very, very smart, but he also is one of the most down-to-earth people that you could ever meet. I love people like that. Yes. Because you meet some smart people and they're out there. It's tough to even talk to them sometimes. But this dude, he was throwing back drinks with us. We were just talking about life, and he had all of these just very interesting, unique perspectives about life. He's one of the happiest people you could ever meet. And I was like, I need to base a guy off off this character, a character off this guy. I figured like this guy is just like endless content. And I reached out to him and I asked him, I said, hey, because we kept in touch after that. I said, hey, I don't know if you're cool with this or not, but I'm writing a book and I modeled one of the characters after you because I was kind of, you inspired me.
Right.
And I was like, do you mind if I use your name? And he was like, oh, use my middle name. More people know me by that. Like he's
Wow.
just a cool guy, was totally fine with it. And I made sure to send him a signed copy of the book the second that it came out. That was actually the very first copy that I sent out.
That's
was
awesome.
to him. Like I said, all those interesting perspectives he had, I modified that slightly, but I created a character who basically is representative of a lot of the heavier philosophical themes that I explore in the book. And the chapter where he's introduced is mostly just talking. It's a conversation. But you dive deep into some pretty dark philosophical pits, and it's basically a conversation between him and the protagonist. And I don't want to give away too much more than that because I'm not trying to ruin it for anyone.
No. We do appreciate what you're providing us.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, if you look in all the right places, you can find inspiration anywhere. I think basing characters off of people that you know, it adds an extra breath of life into that character because you know their personality, at least from your perspective. You know, you have an idea about what they might do in that scenario, what they might say.
Right.
It creates a very unique character and a memorable character because it's real. And the more real it is, the better the product is going to be. If you're writing a book and you're either capping yourself or pulling back in places because you're afraid of, oh, if I go into that territory, it's weird, or if you're pandering, that's never good. It's very shallow. And if you're doing that, it's the final product is not going to be something that people are really going to enjoy and be able to immerse themselves in. But if it's real, even if it's dark, even if it's gritty, even if it's gross, even whatnot, if it's real, it reads.
Okay, that's good. That's great to lead up to my next question that someone had is there ever, in your experience, too many opinions? Because, when you're creating something and like you said, you had your wife be the first people to read some of your words. But aside from that, is there ever got to a point in this process where you're like, well, there's just too many opinions. I have to believe in myself and my vision?
Yeah, I think you can definitely. I mean, for the most part, the constructive criticism that I received was pretty manageable in the beginning. And then I think what happens is it's not so much too many opinions. It's if you allow yourself to become obsessed over them, then it still has to be your work. You can't be, oh, this person said I have to do this, so I'm going to change this. Oh, this person said I have to do this, so I'm going to change this. Then it's just a bunch of people who have thrown words on a page, and you're just the outlet for that. And it still needs to be your story.
Right.
And so I would say feedback is good. Feedback is helpful, especially if it's honest feedback. Make sure you're sure that you're getting honest feedback. My wife, I always know I can trust my wife with honest feedback, even if it's not so polite. But, those sources are invaluable in making sure that you're honing your story. But if you get so obsessed with every review that gets posted online, every editorial, everything, I mean, you can go down kind of a dark path, and it's going to harm the body of work that you're trying to create. And so I would say there are certain times, especially in the beginning, when you're trying to get it ready for final production, where feedback is great, as long as you know what to pull from it, and as long as you're not letting other people dictate your work, it's invaluable. But the obsession with, because you can, and I've found myself prey to this, prior to me starting the second book, just constantly checking to see, like, all right, is there another review? What is it? Is it good? Is it good? And then I'm like, wait, I'm not getting anything done. Like,
Right, right.
Yeah. So just don't fall into that trap.
So Vitalerium, right? You would say it's sci-fi mixed with mystery, mixed with politics.
You're going to get a lot of things with this. So you get your, it is a sci-fi, so you get your action, your suspense, things like that. And I do take the time. There are elements of hard sci-fi. I'd say it's like a nice mix of hard sci-fi and space opera, because it is primarily character focused, which allows you to really become involved in the story. Because who's reading the story? It's a person, so they're going to identify with people. And I wanted that to be the case. I wanted, once again, this to be something where you could entrench yourself in the lore and what's going on in this world. But I take the time to do my research and try and base all of these new technologies. How did we get to this point in, current physics theory? A lot of it is extrapolation, and a lot of it I had to do a lot of research for because I am not a physicist. I've got a little bit of a medical background, and that was kind of cool to incorporate certain aspects of that into, what does future medicine look like and things like that. Lots of action. So it is a gripping story. You get political intrigue because, like I mentioned before, it's multi-narrative. You end up following a number of the politicians on planet Deorum, and you get to see not only how they kind of portray themselves, when the cameras are watching, and portray their ambitions and what their, the new laws that they're putting into place. They have an explanation for what that's for, but then in the back room you see what's really going on. And why they're, who they are really as a person, what type of, what their ambitions truly are and how that's driving their actions. So there is the political intrigue portion of it. You get a little bit of romance with this. I put the protagonist through hell. I had to give him something. And romance it's always good to have some element of that in any story, I feel like, because it also gives your characters depth. It helps you build a multifaceted character, someone who's not just one-dimensional. You get to see them in different scenarios. So there is a little bit of romance there. There's moments of comedy. You get the conspiracy elements for those of you out there who like conspiracy theories. Right. And hey, is the pyramid just, part of the scaffolding for how our world was built or something like that? That's a little bit of Douglas Adams, some Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for you. Fabricated planet theory, or whatever they call it. I forget the name of it. But
right, something to that effect.
And some of it's fun. So, and some of it's, that could be true. Some of it's
right. Scratch your head and think,
Yeah. So I'm not someone who I like to ask the what if questions, and so I don't like hang my beliefs heavily on any of these things. But I also go, well, what if?
Right.
And that's you have to ask a ton of what if questions as you're trying to create a narrative as, complicated as the one in Vitalerium. And not that it's complicated as in like not easy to follow, but complicated like there's a lot of different things that end up weaving together throughout the course of the book. So,
would you say that there's any signs of Black Mirror in your story? The Black Mirror episodes where they kind of lead you here and goes here, and you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming, and then this happened. Like the surprise kind of things. Like pushing the envelope for people just to kind of comprehend, because it's futuristic. Like you said, we don't know really where we're going now.
You'll get a little bit of a feel for that in certain areas for sure. I'll tell you what, like I said, this book is your introduction to the universe. Because when you end up planning out 7 books, you end up having to, kind of divvy up where you're going to put certain concepts. I can't discuss every future concept in one book, right? But
damn it,
in future books, we're going to start getting weird. We're going to start getting real weird. That's when we're going to start exploring where some of the theories meet. And
come on, give us a teaser. Give us something.
Well, for instance, in book 3, one of the planets you'll be visiting is Ventura. And Ventura is a planet that is completely corporate owned. So it has its own society. It's basically owned by 2 separate corporations. One is the Syriax Corporation, and one is Grazix Industries. And they're kind of feuding when you're introduced to the planet. But the planet is basically pure corporatocracy. So it's entirely corporate run. You know, the government that you're introduced to is really just a media arm of the corporations, and not even really a well-hidden one. It's almost something that people kind of like know and accept at that point. But you get to see how society looks when you've got basically 2 corporations that are fighting over, we want to bring this person over from that corporation, or we want to bring, and what they do to keep people within the corporations. And, it's because it's almost like you have 2 factions that are kind of going at it with each other. And it's going to be a very interesting society to be able to explore.
Sounds like it. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so then how can people get the book, the comic book? Where can we find you?
Absolutely. So the book is on Amazon. You can find it on my website if you want the limited edition stuff. And
let's show the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Have you Can you hold the book up for us?
Oh yeah. So.
There you
go. Oh hey.
Right there.
It's too many cameras.
No.
So you can get Vitalerium Descent into the Void on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com, basically anywhere where you get your books. You can get the book on my website as well as the limited edition prints of the book. That's Vitaleriumseries.com. It's Vitalerium series.com. That's also where you can get the comic book. And the comic book issue 2 will be out end of this month. And I've got basically the next 5 issues in production as we speak. That was my way to bring a pictorial version of the book to life, or at least the first step toward it. There will be lots more of those. You can find me on social media at Vitalerium Series or on X at Vitalerium. I have a Patreon. It's called Inside Vitalerium, where you can get access to digital versions of the book, all future versions of the book as it comes out, all future versions of the comic book, and typically you get that a little earlier than everyone else on the Patreon, as well as a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Nice. And any last words you can leave with our viewers? Any message to help them? Because really the question I had here, which you kind of answered already, is how do I start?
You just got to sit down and start. Grab an idea. Make sure you base it in something that you love. I love sci-fi. Since I was a kid, I've loved sci-fi. I still, anytime a new sci-fi flick comes out, I try and go see it. Or sci-fi anything, video game, what have you. So base it in something that you like, something that you know. They do say write what you know, and once again, that helps to make it real. Make it real. If it's real, it reads. And just sit down and start, because if you never start, you'll never finish.
Right. In a year from now, Vitalerium, where do you plan it to be? Where should it be by now? If we see you in a year from now.
A year from now, I would like to I'll have this. A year from now, I will have the second book out. I'm hoping to have at least 10 to 15 issues of the comic book in production and circulation with limited editions and everything else. I hope to have an animated film created, as well as be working toward an animated series at that point in time. I plan to be at basically every major Comic-Con convention. I'm starting to branch out into other states now as well.
Nice.
So I plan to be at the big 3. So catch me at a Comic-Con if you want to, check out some of the stuff in person or ask me some questions. Sure. I love interacting with, the fans and everyone else.
And let me tell you, his booth was busy. It was nonstop busy. He has an amazing booth. It was a lot of fun. Show him the.
Oh yeah, this is just a little. Yep. So this is just a little. This is the Vitalerium crystal, or at least my rendering of it.
You'll see that on his table.
Yep. You'll see these. You'll see. I've got 3D printed helmets for the Coalition for Prosperity. That's the authoritarian government on planet Deorum. I've got lots of different stuff, and it's continuing to grow. I just started getting, merch, hats, shirts, all that kind of stuff. I'm just having fun with it.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
happy for
find
you.
ways to make the booth bigger and better and just more eye-catching, more neon.
Right.
I need
No,
more
it's,
neon.
It's amazing. Definitely an eye catch. Well, Nick Casbarro, Vitalerium, check him out. I'm Stephen Prano. This is Cyber Health Podcast. Please share this. Thank you to our subscribers, our followers. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.
It's been a pleasure, Stephen.
Appreciate it. Take care, guys.